back. I'm happy to be joined with two of my good friends, Perry Swinson, Justin Livonius. They've all experienced what we were talking about earlier with the recruiting process, both themselves top juniors. Perry was a nationally ranked junior player, had her pick of schools, ended up going to the University of Texas, had a great career there, and then was one of the top amateurs coming out of school, and then turned professional, played several LPGA Tour events, Futures Tour, so she has played at the highest level, spent some time at the Ledbetter Academy, so she's got a wealth of knowledge that we're going to talk to her about a little bit. Justin Livonius, also top junior, went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, played a couple of years on the mini tours, and is our reigning club champion here at Carmel, so an outstanding player. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
This is really so cool. So let's get right into it, and I'll start with Perry. Some of the things that are going to help our juniors out there, and especially your tournament players, how important it is to keep stats while you're going through your tournaments?
Well, I think stats is the only way to really see where do you need improvement. So I know that going through junior golf and college golf, we were really big on keeping stats, not only in competitive rounds, but practice rounds too, because you have different tendencies when you practice and then when you play competitive. So just knowing how many putts you have per round, putts per greens hit in regulation, what are your sand saves, fairways, greens, and then really you just get an overall picture of, hey, I really need to work on my sand saves.
Absolutely. Do you find some of the juniors out there that tend to work on their strengths instead of their weaknesses?
Well, I know from my experience, I love just getting on the driving range and teeing up drivers and seeing how far I can hit it. And then when I got on the course and I hit 14, 15 greens and still shooting over par and having, millions of putts, I could have spent more time on putting green.
Absolutely. What about you, Justin? You think?
I kind of echo what Perry said. It's easy to get out there and rip a bunch of drivers and hit shots that you're so comfortable with to see the repetition and see the quality that you can produce. But, to get some training aids out and work on the putting green and really put in the time and get on video and kind of see where you're struggling. Golf, there's such a fine line between what is considered maybe good and bad or successful and unsuccessful, and really it doesn't come without work. And so I think just to really put in the time and just the process day in and day out of practicing your entire game is what's going to bring you to that level.
Are there any websites that you guys think are great out there?
Yeah, there's a lot now. I always grew up using shotbyshot.com.
Yeah, Shot by Shot is great.
It's easy, it's on the internet, you can get on it wherever tournament you're at and just click the buttons and you can pretty much pull up any graph you want. You can do competitive rounds, you can do certain slopes of different courses, so.
Absolutely, it's good stuff. So another thing that I like to get my juniors to do, and we've talked about it before the interview, is keeping a journal and keeping notes on what you're working on or a swing thought. How important was that? I know she brought in like 6 journals.
Actually,
that she had from her careers. This tells you how important it is, kids out there, to write stuff down and organize it. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, I think we spend so much time working on our game, and then when you get out under the heat of competition, sometimes your mind just goes blank and you just need that one swing thought that's like, man, what was I working on last week? And so it's just easy to go back and look like, hey, I just need one tip, and you can carry this stuff in your golf bag. You can carry whatever you want to, and so, it's interesting now, 10, 15 years later, for me to go back, and I'm still working on the same things now that I was working on then.
So your tendencies tend to kind of stay the
same.
same.
So now I got lessons for free right here in my book.
That's awesome. What about you, Justin? Just keep some notes and journals when you're playing?
Absolutely. I think, you work at an age, from such a young age, maybe 6, 8, 10 years old, and by the time you're, getting recruited to play college golf, you spent potentially 10 or 15 years of time with yourself on the range, with your parents on the range, with possibly an instructor, maybe multiple instructors. And you've got so many different thoughts, but like Perry said, and I'm sure you would echo, they all kind of come back to the same things. You're working on a lot of the same things, but just to get that refresher, whether you're in your hotel room by yourself or you're thinking about going out to practice that day, what do I want to work on? What are some things, or maybe what are some things that I've maybe forgotten that I need to get back to?
Yeah, and I know my dad, he was very good at this. He even had a laminated card that he made himself with like his top 10 not only swing thoughts, but mental swing thoughts.
For you, right?
Well, for
him, if you,
I had one and he had one, and
Yeah.
he put it in his back pocket every competitive round he played, and walking down the 18th hole, he would, no matter, he knew what was on the card, but he would pull it out
Right.
just to keep his mind focused on the positive things he wanted to.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice. So write your stuff down. I think keeping a journal really helps you to organize your thoughts, and it just keeps your brain active in what you're working on. It doesn't allow you to think about the negative stuff. That's really, really good advice. One thing we talked about earlier was picking colleges. We're talking about the recruiting process a little bit. How important is it to go to a school, one, that you maybe like the coach, but two, that you're able to play?
Yeah. When I was going through the recruiting process, I was fortunate and I could really almost pick any school I wanted to go to. And I was recruited by Duke, and they were the #1 in the country, and I was all gung-ho. And, then I realized that there's a good chance that I might not play. I might sit on the bench. They had 5 really strong players, and so I ended up going to University of Texas because I knew I was going to play. And we had a chance to win nationals with that team too. But, my things were warm weather. You got to like the coach. You got to like your teammates. I chose Texas because I also wanted a business school, and Duke didn't have a business school. So I think those are all going somewhere where you know you're going to play. It's no fun being on the bench and everybody else is traveling. So
Absolutely. So what about you, Justin? How was your recruiting process?
And I think I can speak very well to this. I played at a school that maybe isn't predominantly known as a golf powerhouse, or its athletic program maybe isn't a Big 12 school or an SEC school. But when it comes down to it, you're going to have to find a school that's right for you. You have to have a mix of the education, have fun, get the experience, like your teammates. Find your coach to be to your liking. And those are tough decisions. I mean, those are decisions that don't come easy, and you just have to do the best you can. I would definitely advise, you're not going to want to pick a school just because you love their basketball team or, you love the weather. There's so many decisions and things that you have to decide on that go into really being happy and feeling like you could be successful. And really, all 3 of us, anybody watching this video would agree, you want to play. You don't want to just qualify and sit at home and watch your teammates go. And so there's a fine line there between feeling like you've got the ability to play on a team and really be successful and contribute.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, because you find some of the kids that maybe don't make it to the highest level, have played in some top schools, but just didn't get that productivity because they weren't playing. You're not going to get better if you're just playing practice rounds and so forth. You can see a lot of kids that play in the PGA Tour now that playing at maybe lower schools, but they got to play a lot. They got to learn how to win. How important is that, right? Learning to win college tournaments and amateur tournaments.
And really, a lot of the girls now on the LPGA Tour, we never even heard of them in college. They were playing for smaller schools, and you know what? They were playing all the time. They were practicing, and they showed up, and now they're kicking butt.
Absolutely. So the most important question is, what advice would you give to a young girl coming up through the junior ranks that really wanted to play in college?
Someone once told me a quote, and it said, you have to fall in love with the process. So to me, you can't really focus on, am I going to get a scholarship? Am I going to win this golf tournament? I think really just being in the present, falling in love with the process, loving going out, playing golf with your friends, practicing, going through the drills, even though they're not fun all the time, knowing, hey, I'm enjoying this because I know it's going to benefit me in the long run. That's probably the best advice I could give anybody.
That's awesome. How about the parental part? I mean, how important was your family and your parents in your junior golf?
I think, really the only reason I started playing golf was because of my dad. And even when I first started, I didn't really love golf. I mean, I was only about 4 or 5 years old. But I love spending my time with my dad. And so coming out here, and those are some of the best memories we've ever had. But I think parents play a big role. I mean, they've got to be the ones, unfortunately, to finance the golf and take you in the car and drive you around the country and get those entry fees in on time. So, it's definitely a big commitment, but it pays off in the long run.
What about you, Justin? Your parents, I'm sure, played a big role.
They did. I was so fortunate, my dad, he's a golfer. He loved to take me to tournaments and kind of, play an active role in whether it was helping me maybe to buy a new putter or get a lesson or take me to a tournament. But My advice kind of goes in line with what Perry said, but it's just that the parents, if you have the ability to do it, is to compete year-round. I think to build a resume, if you're really looking to play at the next level on a golf scholarship, it's so competitive out there, and if you can play in all different types of weather throughout the year, whether you play Carolina Golf Association or city events or AJGAs, I just think if you can compete in January, February, March, and you can also compete in July, August, September in all different types of weather, you know, a well-rounded player. Perry can speak to this as well, as you play so many college golf events in cold weather and rain suits in the spring and the fall that, and I just think that makes you a better golfer in general. If you can strike the ball solidly in 40 degrees and you can also strike it solidly in 85 degrees, it's going to take you a long way.
I know I played in West Virginia Conference in the mountains, so you know we played in snow, rain, high winds. I mean, it definitely made me a tougher competitor. So.
Yeah. And you know, going back to the parents, I think there is a fine line between being a coach and a manager and just being someone's parent. And I think, you know, my dad really did a good job of that. You know, there were times where he became too much of a coach and a manager, and you know, we were able to say, hey, this is why I have a coach. So I think, you know, if you can just be out there and just be there for support, I think that's probably the best role you can play.
I'm glad you brought that up. I get a lot of that with my juniors, and you know, the dads and the moms have great advice, and they want to help them coach. And I said, well, if you're paying me to coach the kids, let me do my job, and then you be the support team off the.
And the hard thing is, sometimes they say things that might contradict what you're saying.
Right, exactly.
So then, you know, it's, well, which one do I follow? So I think let the coach be the coach,
Use the kids,
and
right?
let the parents be the support.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. All right, well, guys, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Definitely.
I hope this helps everybody out there, you juniors. Get out there and just make sure that you're having fun playing golf, because that's the number one thing. Let the rest of it take care of itself. I'm Jason Sutton, the Director of Instruction here at Carmel, and I'm so glad to be with you on the 7 Nights at the Twitter Junior Edition. You can follow me on Twitter at Golf Guru TV, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Perfect.